subject of today's show. You know, I really thought that someone on the left would write this. I've been saying this, the true story of how Kamala Harris lost the presidential race. I thought that they would be so angry with her for losing to Trump that they would be.
We are still in a news environment in which there are good polls, and particularly where in some states there is a gold standard pollster who appears to be unaffected by larger dynamics that are making everybody whine about the polls. And the reason those individual pollsters get the gold standard designation is both because of their proven sound methodology, but also because of their track record over time in that particular jurisdiction. And the prototypical example of a gold standard poll is the Iowa poll done by Ann Selzer, by J. Ann Selzer in Iowa. The polls that she produces for the Des Moines Register in Iowa, specifically the final Iowa polls she does before each major election, her polls are known for their uncanny predictive accuracy. This is Ann Selzer's recent track record. I mean, what you see here is in each election year, what her final poll said the result would be in Iowa. Next to that is what the actual result was on Election Day. And as you can see, if you look at the Senate and presidential races since 2012, her poll has accurately predicted the winner of the Senate and presidential races in Iowa within 1 or 2 points every time. There was a governor's race in 2018 where things went a little bit gang-a-glay, but in Senate and presidential races, you have seen Ann Selzer basically as a living bullseye. And that's why lots of people had strong reactions when the Des Moines Register Ann Selzer Iowa poll was posted last night. This is that poll, and it is a shock result.
A few moments later.
First on 13 this morning, top pollster Ann Selzer announcing that she plans on retiring from election polling. The announcement comes this morning after Selzer and the Des Moines Register predicted Vice President Kamala Harris leading President-elect Trump 47 to 44% in the final poll ahead of Election Day.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We have to talk about another disgraced individual who has been put to shame due to her election prediction being wrong. Okay, I mean, we've talked about Alan Lichtman, who's supposed to be the Nostradamus of predicting presidential elections. Okay, and this guy was super wrong about this election, and he's still having a hard time dealing with the fact that he was wrong. Essentially, he's blaming everybody else, including racism, bigotry, disinformation, everything and everybody except himself. And at this point, he is being trolled in the media because of the fact that he just won't accept responsibility for getting it wrong.
It was some 10 million Biden voters who decided not to vote this time, and that's directly tied to misinformation. You know, they don't like Trump, but, you know, they're thinking, well, do we really
Did Donald Trump not pick up more votes this time than he did in 2016?
So, pardon me?
Did Donald Trump pick up more votes this time than he did in 2016?
Yeah,
or
but
in
not
2020?
than he picked up in 2020, the most relevant last election. He picked up about the same, but 10 million.
Both sides can say things like this, like misinformation. It's hard to quantify that.
If you don't let me make my points, why do you have me on?
No, we love it. It's a conversation. It's spirited. I think there's a little bit of a delay.
We're done.
I
you
think
don't
we'd
let
love
me talk. What's the point?
You can
Are you the expert or am I the expert? You can question me,
you so
but you
claim
gotta
to be
let
an
me talk.
expert. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. The critical thing in this election were at least 10 million Biden voters who did not vote. If even half of them had voted, this election would have been different.
We hope to have you back in 4 years. There is a little bit of a delay, Professor Lichtman, so I apologize if we were stepping on each other's toe. Our intent was, of course, to listen to what you had to say. And like you said, you were wrong, but maybe in 4 years we'll get back on track. Again, Alan Lichtman with us here on the DMV Zone. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Again, clearly he's having a hard time. But hey, at least he's not quitting, right? At least he's not quitting. He has some books to sell. Okay, but you can't say that about Ann Selzer, who is quitting. She is retiring from being a pollster after her humiliating miss when it comes to her prediction about Kamala Harris winning Iowa. Now, we have to flash back on this because I always have to remind you guys just how wrong some people were in regards to taking this poll seriously, okay? Because when she came out with this poll showing Kamala Harris up over Trump by 3 points, okay, had Kamala leading 47-44, which would have been an unprecedented result, okay? And immediately I said that, hey, I don't think that this really makes sense. This does not make sense. It doesn't make sense that Iowa would flip blue based off this mythical demographic of women who are independent, but at the same time, they care about abortion so much in democracy, aka they're Trump deranged. They're going to come out and flip Iowa, which has historically been a conservative state. Trump has won Iowa the last 2 presidential elections, okay, by a pretty good margin. I just don't think this makes sense, right? I don't think this makes sense. I mean, Ann Seltzer couldn't really even explain the result of her own poll.
Right. Okay. So Noah, are you able to put up that tweet? Maybe it's up and I can't see it because it's up. It's up. All right. Ann, are you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay. Could you just go through and say what you think about those criticisms?
Well, I'm trying. This is in a format that's a little difficult for me to see. What does this D represent and the R represent?
D. So they're saying that, and again, he says read through the Seltzer crosstabs.
Yeah.
So they're saying that they know that this poll shows, and again, it's they say your sample is got it's more 3% more Democrats than Republican, whereas the electorate last time was 8% more Republican. It says that you have Indies voting Democrat +4, whereas last time they voted or +7 +4. So they're saying if you compare what you have with what happened in 20, according to the exit polls, it's way too big a change across all these groups in a uniform way towards pro-Harris as opposed to Trump.
Yeah. Well, this is the first time I'm seeing this, and so it's sort of against my nature to think I understand everything that this is saying, and I haven't cross-checked these numbers to know how that actually pans out. But I'm going to say that it is clear that senior women are an advantage to Kamala Harris in our poll. Kamala Harris wins by more than 2-1, actually, maybe even more than that among senior women. It's a big, big spread. So I don't know. I mean, the truth of it.
Yeah, so you don't understand the results of your own poll, which immediately sent alarm bells in my mind, which is why I came out here at the time before the election. And I said, this poll is hopium, okay? Because this poll seemed to be more about narrative and what Democrats wish would happen, right? What Democrats need to happen in order for Kamala to win rather than what actually will happen or a true and accurate reflection of how voters are feeling at the time. This is just hopium.
Flashback.
I really do believe that poll was put out there as hopium for the Kamala Harris campaign because at this point, that is what they need the most. They need hopium, right? They need a large injection of, hey, we can win this, okay? That we have a chance at winning. Look at this Iowa poll that usually is very reliable, and we're going to put this out here and say that these women are fired up to vote for Kamala Harris because of democracy and abortion, right? Iowa is going to flip blue because of democracy and abortion. Again, this is the narrative that is being put out there in the media, right? This is the narrative. I wouldn't be surprised if Ann Seltzer was paid a large amount of money to put that poll out. She's been doing her laps on the mainstream liberal media, explaining her poll in ways that are incoherent and just don't really make sense, okay? I wouldn't be surprised because, listen, if it worked and Kamala ends up winning, Ann Seltzer will be praised as a hero amongst the liberal media, right? Because, again, she injected the hopium that they needed in order to help Kamala Harris get that turnout from women that she's going to need on election day in order to win, okay? That is, I think, what is currently happening. And then you had some people on the left who actually did buy into this extremely nonsensical poll, despite the fact that, again, Ann Seltzer couldn't even explain the results of her own poll outside of pushing this narrative that Democrats wanted to happen, right, in order for Kamala Harris to win.
Again, I want to repeat, Kamala Harris is up in the Iowa Seltzer poll. She has 47%. Trump has 44%. This is, if you're in the Trump campaign, this is a 5-alarm fire, man. This is like shit. All hands on deck. We are hurting. We are hemorrhaging at the moment. We got to do something to try to stop the bleeding because look, let's just say it, right? Does this mean Florida truly is in play for Kamala, right? Does this mean Ohio might actually be in play for Kamala? I mean, now you begin to start having the conversations, forget the 7 swing states we already talk about all the time. Are there other states that we don't perceive of as swing states that might actually be on the table now, right? I saw some polls coming out of Kansas that had her down like 5 points, right? I mean, in striking distance in Iowa, look, again, I want to be clear, even if she ends up losing Iowa, and let's say she loses it by a point or two, that is still, this is what everybody needs to understand, that is still an absolute cataclysmic disaster for Trump and the Republicans. Because this does not bode well for their chances in the other states, right? Certainly not in the swing states. So, look, all those segments that we've covered over the past 2 or 3 weeks where I've been telling you guys, hey, man, she's running a pretty good campaign. Hey, man, the poll results are looking really good. Hey, man, the early voting results are looking really good. It appears to be complete and utter vindication now. So one of the things I'm working on.
Yeah. So it turns out that prediction aged very, 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 very badly. Again, I don't understand why any of these people in the leftist media have any credibility whatsoever. I mean, a lot of them don't. Okay. A lot of them should retire like Ann Seltzer is doing. Okay. And Trump ended up winning Iowa by a 13-point margin, which really begs the question of how in the world did somebody who usually conducts pretty accurate polls, I mean, she's considered to be the gold standard pollster, how in the world did she get it so wrong? Well, I personally think, and this is a hypothesis here, I have no evidence to back this up. This is purely speculation, right? I'm not making any definitive claims here, but I personally would not be surprised if there was some type of financial payoff. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense because
Meet Panera's new Ciabatta Dippers, a duo built for dipping. Here for a limited time.
Listen, Democrats tried to create a reality that did not exist, right? The same thing happened when it came to the whole Madison Square Garden and the Puerto Rico Latino vote, where they tried to basically make people upset. They tried to make people angry. They told Puerto Ricans, you don't have any pride in your heritage or your country if you vote for Trump, after a comedian made a joke, right? And then it turns out that the same exact districts where the Puerto Rican vote was so concentrated in Pennsylvania, which was a key state, by the way, they ended up voting for Trump at a higher clip this time around than they voted for Trump in 2020. Like, for example, in Allentown, where, again, there are a lot of Puerto Ricans, there's a heavy Puerto Rican population, they ended up voting for Trump at 48.1% to Kamala Harris 50.7%. Now, although Kamala won it, still compared to how Biden performed in 2020, Biden outperformed Kamala Harris. He had 53.2% to Trump's 45.6%. So Trump actually did better than he did in 2020, despite the fear mongering from the left. Okay, I mean, I remember headlines like this: Trump's Puerto Rico fallout is, quote, spreading like wildfire in Pennsylvania. Evidence of the backlash was immediate on Monday. Again, they tried to create a narrative that just did not exist in reality, right? And I think that's what the Iowa poll was. And again, I think there are a lot of questions about, well, why was she so wrong? Why would she risk her career to help Democrats get the hopium that they desperately needed at the time? Well, it's very simple, because there seemed to be no plans for her to continue to be a pollster after putting out that poll, right? I think she kind of knew that, hey, you know what? This is the end of my career. Let me just put out this hopium poll in which, you know, hey, there may or may not have been some financial incentive. I'm just saying at this point, I think it is likely that there was some backdoor financial incentive. I don't know, but I think it just all kind of makes sense, right? Considering the fact that she's quitting